Yeah, I haven't revealed myself. I haven't revealed myself yet.
Yeah, watch this, watch this. There.
I'm looking.
Are you kidding? What compels a person to play Yorick jungle? Of all the bruisers in League of Legends, why this one off-roll? Well, that's very simple. When you're a jungle main who plays almost exclusively mages, then your top laner develops a Gwen tier obsession with Aurora, and your mid laner keeps obsessively rambling about the revival of Shurima, you start to look for a physical pick that fits what you enjoy. Look, he's basically a jugger mage. I'm trying something, okay? So today, we're going to be going over Yorick's abilities, jungle clear, skill order, purpose and playstyle from the jungle, draft, itemization, and runes to see if this pick is viable, or if it's just a pipe dream to get me out of volibear duty.
Hey Quinn, you were looking to try and find out how Yorick jungle felt if you were a little behind.
And that is true.
We are helping out.
But we're trying to figure out the bad matchups.
Yorick's passive allows him to summon the dead to do his bidding. These are the ghouls. They are the entire premise of Yorick jungle. They never expire, they take half damage from monsters, their HP scales with Yorick's, and they are extremely stupid and like to blindly PvE until they die. And that means Yorick can do Zyra things to camps. You can leave your ghouls in one quadrant, walk to the other, get an entirely new set of ghouls, and clear at a similar pace to a mage jungler. Yorick is limited to 4 active ghouls around him, but ghouls that are doing their own thing halfway across the map don't count against that limit. When ghouls encounter an enemy minion wave, they'll automatically start attacking. When they start, they'll push down the lane until they die. That means Yorick's damage comes from creatures who can't pass the Stanford Marshmallow experiment, which makes it really hard to rotate effectively as a top laner. As jungle Yorick though, it's a lot easier to control this behavior, so you are expected to bring 4 ghouls to any gank or objective. The ghouls are summoned from graves, which interact with Yorick's basic abilities and which are created when a certain number of units die near Yorick. Large monsters don't interact with that count and will always spawn a grave on death. That property along with Yorick's Q means you can get a lot more graves from your jungle clear than you would expect. Yorick's Q is a basic auto reset. On hit, Yorick heals for a percentage of his missing HP. If Q last hits a unit, it will create a guaranteed grave. If Q is on cooldown and there are at least 3 nearby graves, Yorick gains access to his Q2, which consumes those graves to summon ghouls. Yorick's W creates ring-shaped terrain that can be destroyed by auto-attacking it. This ability is for all purposes a wall and knocks enemies aside on spawn. Yorick and his teammates can walk freely through the wall. It's good for closing choke points and catching enemies on a gank, and it can even draw turret aggro on a dive, though it dies instantly to turret shots. Yorick's E is an area-targeted skill shot that deals damage to enemies and draws ghoul aggro. The ability deals % current HP damage, then slows and marks its targets. Ghouls within range of the mark will leap to the target's position, dealing bonus damage. If a grave is within range of a mark, then a ghoul is immediately raised. That's how we can get ghouls early in our clear without relying entirely on multi-unit camps, and how we convince the ghouls to attack camps while Yorick walks away. It's also the ability that must land for literally any of Yorick's plays to work, so avoid throwing it at max range if there's consequences for missing. Yorick's R summons the Maiden of the Mist. This is a summon that lasts indefinitely until slain, and that grants Yorick a lot of in-combat power. The Maiden creates new ghouls on spawn and raises a ghoul from every nearby enemy death. When she attacks a unit, she applies a mark that can be consumed by Yorick's attacks to deal bonus magic damage. The Maiden will always try to hit the same target as Yorick, but she'll prioritize enemies marked by E just like the ghouls do. She's very powerful, and generally Yorick wants to have her around before he takes a fight, to the point that he's usually summoning her while just walking around the jungle. However, he can also recast his ultimate to cause the Maiden to push down the nearest lane, and remember that any ghouls created by the Maiden in bot lane won't count against Yorick's own ghoul limit in mid lane. Most of Yorick's summons are lobotomites, but the Maiden at least has enough self-preservation instinct to stand behind Yorick while out of combat. Like most non-traditional junglers, Yorick has a bit of a weird clear that you're going to have to learn before you can even do the basics. If you don't...
Take shield bash, but I have to shield myself.
Yeah, I was wondering if
Oh no!
Ow.
Oh no! I just did everything wrong! There's a few key points. Ghouls only have an attention span if you put something big in front of them. Look at them, their brains are mush. Subway Surfers doesn't work on them. They need the big dopamine from killing a large monster. If you have more than one ghoul, you can always leave them behind on a single large monster and they will secure it if you're not invaded, but you can't assume they're going to finish the raptors, wolves, or krugs. Take out the small monsters yourself. You're going to want to start on either wolves or raptors depending on where you need to path, and backload your queue to last hit only the small monsters, not the large. Those will give you graves either way. Kite towards your next camp while clearing and use your E to summon the ghouls from your last camp's graves. Q2 is necessary on raptors if you want to go straight to krugs. Once you've got those practiced and understood, you can execute any Yorick clear. Well, almost any Yorick clear. Oh my god! Prisma! Is this guy for real? I'm losing this, aren't I? So, Yorick's not the strongest jungler from minute 1. He's all about the ghouls, and so if he doesn't have them, he's extremely weak. And that means that, like Hecarim, he's vulnerable to this nonsense. If you can get past that though, Yorick's Toolbox gives him a lot of great early game options. He's about as good on objectives as the average mage. He's got the option to use his wall as a trap, or to close terrain, which has aggressive value on ganks, and defensive value on objectives. He's the only jungler I can think of capable of both taking the objective and playing bouncer for himself. If there's no lethal gank, you can just enter a lane, throw your pocket at the laner to chunk the enemy, then lose a 1v1 to the enemy jungler's counter gank. Wait, no, that's not good. Yorick's next main weakness is the fact that any of his plays that interact with his laners cost him the ghouls he needs to protect himself from the enemy jungler. Want to help your mid laner push? Your ghouls are gone. Want to gank a lane? Your ghouls are gone. Want to counter gank the enemy jungler? Your ghouls, you guessed it, are gone. Now, this doesn't mean that Yorick's going to run into problems every single time he steps onto vision, but it does mean that he has to be very deliberate about which plays he chooses to make. There's 2 ways to spend your ghouls in the early game and then regenerate them quickly enough to fight again. The first is to leave graves behind on your raptor pit if you're planning on fighting around mid. The second is your maiden summon. Yorick's level 6 to 11 is a critical moment of the game for him. Suddenly with Maiden up, his strengths are hugely empowered and his weaknesses are covered. He becomes more comfortable standing his ground and can actually win objective fights against stat sticks like Udyr. He can gank without needing a full minute to regenerate his ghouls. As long as he's not blundering into a position where he's badly outnumbered, he should feel very capable of generating a snowball through fast farm, great catch tools, and high combat power. To recap, Yorick's got genuinely strong tools for a jungler. He has some strong, albeit costly poke for slow game states. He's got a very dominant single target catch that he can supplement with his own damage. His wall can trap immobile enemies for catch or for peel, or it can be used like an Anivia wall as proper terrain. Coupled with high damage after 6 minutes and great objective pressure, Yorick should come out of early game with either lots of resources or an actual kill advantage. So, with this many tools, what's he got to offer in the mid game? Huh. Great. Okay, it's not literally nothing, but Yorick's tools are obviously best in the smaller skirmishes that are more likely in the laning phase. In the mid game, he's a lot more pick dependent, and if a team fight breaks out, then he's not the main character. The wall remains useful for progressing a teammate's win condition, but Yorick's going to have to wait until the fight is blown open to get much of his own damage off. That's not unusual for jungle bruisers, but it feels a little more restricting in this case.
And you just like gobble the resources up, and then you have those resources.
I mean, yeah, but if I'm trying to figure out if this makes any sense in competitive, then I kind of don't want to do that. I'm a Yorick, I like resources. I'm also a jungler, I like my teammates having resources. Yorick is helping his teammates to carry the game, not carrying it for them. In a desperate situation, he can fall back to the side lane power he's known for in top lane, but that does deny resources from his teammates. Since he's in a more supportive role though, suddenly releasing the Maiden into a side lane feels a lot more consistent. If you've got a strong siege or split push sequence coming up, Yorick can create a unique 1-4-1 or 1-5 lane assignment. He's not expecting to do much more than use his wall in some of these fights anyway. And he's also just weirdly good at enabling cheese. He's good with Nico clones, he's good with Belveth waves, he can give the Maiden to Tryndamere. Yorick's the type of champion who can win the game on the spot if a cheeky macro play that should not work, works anyway. That's never an approach you'd build around competitively, but my god is it addicting in solo queue or casual in-houses.
I stopped it!
No way!
They're all dying. They're all
Go, go,
dying.
go, go! Push, push, push! Wait, who stole it? What?
Wait, I got it.
Yeah, I stole it.
Oh, you got it. Let's go.
Yeah, I stole it with Lucian ult.
Yeah.
For Yorick's abilities, you're obviously going to start with and max your Q, but don't default to Emax afterwards. While it can be the better option, you're mostly investing in its minimum damage. You can get a lot more if you're expecting to hit frontline even without points. Oddly, that means Wmax second for the wall durability and uptime is going to be better in games where your supportive aspects are more valuable or when everyone has a ton of HP. I think it's generally better, but not everyone agrees. You have per game decisions to make. For items, you're going to have to choose the right approach before purchasing your first item. Yorick is a very atypical bruiser. To optimize for your early game and your own carry potential, it's Trinity into a standard bruiser core. To support your team most effectively, you're looking for a strong, non-sheen damage item into Iceborne Gauntlet, which lets you take more risks around your wall. To optimize only your Ghoul and catch power, then you can start looking at options like Eclipse, Spear of Shojin, and Liandry's. Profane Hydra and a Lethality Core, while once real, hasn't been compelling since the item was severely nerfed on 14.19. Yorick has a lot of weird options, so take the time each game to plan. For runes, you're most likely taking a standard Conqueror inspiration page. Bruiser junglers aren't really known for their creative pages, but in Yorick's case, approach velocity is actually kind of good. The lane Yorick matchup optimizations of Grasp and Comet aren't particularly useful here. Maybe Comet lets us contribute in bad mid-games. The alternate keystones that jungle players tend to go for seem completely insane, that being Press the Attack and Electrocute, neither of which proc solely off your ghouls, but which do help you to one-shot somebody you catch when Yorick himself can commit. I see the vision, we have to snowball off of level 6 to hard carry, but it's not a default. Now what about draft? One tricks, look away, we know you're picking your champion anyway, but the rest of us can't blind pick Yorick unprompted because of his invade vulnerability. We can't slot him into any team because he can't be the primary driver of your comp in the mid-game. And there's no flex potential because nobody in a million years is going to believe that you're just slamming Yorick top. But the conditions aren't that strict. Most of us draft for generic beatdown anyway, especially at low levels of play. I want to say he's a low synergy counterpick, but let's be honest, I'm picking him for fun. Look, obviously, Yorick Jungle is deeply, deeply flawed with very pronounced weaknesses, but I don't know, I kind of like him anyway. If you're playing around his most effective points, then he feels like he's excellent to the point that I think he'd have been a meta jungler if his mid-game were more in his own hands. He's fun, he does as advertised, he's great for filled one tricks and mage players, and for that brief 10 minutes, you feel like the most unstoppable force on the Rift. Yet, no, honestly, I love Yorick I hate Yorick Jungle and everything it stands for.